Please stand by for important information from the leader of the City of Boston, Mayor Martin J. Walsh. Please stand by for important information from the leader of the City of Boston, Mayor Martin J. Walsh.
Thank you, everyone, for being here this morning, this afternoon, I should say. I'm going to start, as I start all press conferences, just giving an overview where we are with numbers. The state numbers as of yesterday. Total cases in Massachusetts, 88,970 cases statewide, a daily increase of 1,045. The state has now confirmed 6,066 deaths, and that was up 128 from the previous day. Boston numbers also as of yesterday, Wednesday. We now have 12,143 cases, an increase of 93. 591 people have passed away from COVID, and that's up 3 from the previous day. This is a difficult time for a lot of families, and I want to just let you know that we're praying for you. Those families that have lost loved ones, and those families that are have family members struggling with illness, and also the folks that are in the hospital. We're thinking of you here today. I want to just say that hang in, and we're certainly pulling on your side that you get better and get out soon. We now have confirmed that 5,362 people have fully recovered from COVID-19 in the city of Boston. Our number of active cases continue to decline, which is a very good thing. I think in my last 3 or 4 press conferences, I've been able to make that statement, which is a good thing. Boston Hope Medical Center is serving 54 people as of today. Altogether, they've treated over 700 COVID patients at the Boston Convention Center. We are certainly looking and certainly moving slowly but surely in the right direction. A lot of it is because of the work that people have done that are watching TV right now, all the precautions that have been taken, all the sacrifices that people are making with social, physical distancing and not visiting loved ones and kind of keeping your family group together. I want to thank you for that. We should be proud of that as a city. I want to thank everyone for their part that they're playing. I know it's been a lot, and many people are feeling stressed and exhausted, but let's focus on the real progress that we're making every single day, and that this, as we get through the path through this virus. The updates I have today are all about building and the path that we're making progress. I'll talk about supporting small businesses as they face continued disruption, as well as challenges in planning and safety in reopening. I'm going to talk about our work to feed children, seniors, and everyone in Boston who needs access to food. And I'm also going to announce new investments by the Boston Resiliency Fund in grassroots organizing that serve vulnerable communities. First, I want to just remind everyone that moving forward in the reopening plan requires us to be more vigilant, not less vigilant in our efforts. The stay-at-home advisory directs you to continue staying at home, except for healthcare essential errands, also activities limited by Phase 1 of the guidelines. There should be no play dates still. There should be no visiting elderly or high-risk individuals, and also no sports. And one of the things that I want to talk about is as we go back to work and society, it's incumbent upon all of us to continue physical distancing, washing your hands as often as possible with soap and warm water, cleaning down surfaces. Our face covering advisory remains in place also when you're going to and from work or whenever you're outside your home, in stores, and also suggesting that you wear it in workplaces. On Tuesday, I outlined additional steps that we're taking in Boston to make sure that we move more cautiously, protect residents and workers, and avoid new outbreaks. You can find those new reopening section. You can find the new reopening section go to boston.gov/coronavirus, and I'll have more updates as we continue to move forward. Today, I want to start with one of the biggest issues about reopening, and that's personal protective equipment. The state is producing safety guidelines, and we're developing other guidelines for PPE usage and cleaning protocols in various settings. But securing PPE has been a challenge even for the biggest players in government and healthcare, as we've been reporting for the last, quite honestly, 10 weeks. For smaller businesses and organizations that need PPE to reopen safely, it potentially will even be a bigger challenge. Our role in the city has been to make sure frontline public employees have PPE, and also to help many of the essential organizations as we can, especially those with limited resources like nursing homes and assisted living facilities. We've also supported long-term facilities, for example, with hundreds and thousands of items of PPE. Small business, it's an issue of both public health and economic equity. We want to make sure that every worker has access to the equipment they need to stay safe. And we want to make sure that the small businesses don't get shut out of reopening because they don't have a supply chain or supply chain connections. So today we're launching a resource to help. It's a web page at boston.gov/business-PPE. boston.gov/business-PPE. It has guidance on what type of PPE your business or organization needs, guidance on how to procure the right items to avoid mistakes and scams, and a list of vendors who make and sell PPE and cleaning supplies. It's also a way for local vendors to help local vendors find customers. To be clear, it's the responsibility of the employer to provide protective gear for their workers. This is a resource to help them meet that responsibility. We're going to keep it updated, and we want to hear back from any barriers in success that people are having. We're certainly all in this together, and we only stay safe if we continue to work together. As we develop these resources, we're also working to support small businesses through continued economic disruption. Our Small Business Relief Fund has now given out nearly $4 million in grants to over 1,100 small businesses in every neighborhood across the city of Boston. They are from industries most heavily impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, including restaurants and hair salons and barbershops, arts and recreation facilities, retail stores, child care and home care providers, and more. 95% of these businesses have 15 or fewer employees. 52 are owned by people of color, 49 owned by women, and 46% are immigrant-owned. These are grants, not loans. They don't create debt. And they are a lifeline for businesses that are hurting and have struggled to get their federally backed loans. A full list of businesses that receive these grants are now up on boston.gov. And I just want people to know we certainly would love to do more here in the city of Boston. We just don't have the resources for it. And that's why we supported our congressional delegation, our senators, in the first round of CARES Act money. And that's why we certainly support the second round of CARES Act money that's currently in front of the United States Senate, which is a $3 trillion package. In that package is some significant money for small businesses. So that's where real impact can be had. Our small business loan program, our small business grant program is a small way to be able to help businesses that are falling through the cracks. We're also working on ways to help small businesses come back strong and safe. As I mentioned over the last couple of press conferences, outdoor seating for when restaurants open is something that we're working on and looking at. We want to help restaurants recover and create safe distance options for everyone. I want to be clear, this is for when dining at restaurants is allowed back in the plan, and that is not in phase one, but we want to be ready. So this morning, the City of Boston Licensing Board took action to lift restriction and streamline the process. The board also issued an online questionnaire that serves as an initial intake for applications. We received responses already from 147 different restaurants. There is an interest in every neighborhood. And with every aspect of our response to this crisis, we're going to make equity a priority. We'll be doing outreach to communities all across the city of Boston and all across the different business districts. And I also want restaurants to know that we certainly feel your pain. Because one of the first things that we're able to do was when restaurants were allowed to do takeout in the city of Boston, we're able to work with delivery and helping you set up delivery services. We're able to help you with takeout restaurants and folks that didn't have takeout licenses, allow every restaurant to have a takeout license. We also advocated to the state to make sure beer and wine could be sold out of your restaurants. And in the city of Boston, the city of Somerville, and other places, we allowed groceries to be sold out of restaurants. So we certainly feel your pain, and we're doing everything we can to help restaurants survive, not just now, but even after this, when they open up. So we want to let you know that we're working very hard. So I'm asking you, please, make sure that you fill out your applications online and fill out the survey so we can better service you as you move forward. Our update on food access starts with an encouraging milestone. As of Monday, we distributed over 1 million meals to young people at 65 meal sites all across the city. That's 1 million meals in 2 months. Before this crisis hit, nutrition for young people was already a priority. But we're building new kitchens across Boston's public schools to provide students with nutritious meals. And that work is going to continue, resuming now as we're preparing for the fall school year. When this crisis hit and schools were closed, we had to stand up a citywide food system. I've talked about it every single press conference we've had. We wanted to make sure we built a system that reached every family and every community in need, regardless of their school and ultimately regardless of their age as well. The success we've had has been tremendous and a collective accomplishment here in the city. We have invested in and coordinated with the work of many different city departments and nonprofit partners. Our Office of Food Access, the Boston Public Schools, the Boston Center for Youth and Families, the Boston Housing Authority, the Greater Boston YMCA, and the Greater Boston Food Bank. Boston Public Schools is responsible for more than half of these meals that we've talked about, of the million meals. They've delivered over 200,000 meals directly to the homes of students with special needs. They've also done nearly 5,000 door-to-door grocery deliveries for people who have reached out in need. 50% of seniors referred to our Age Strong Commission. And we've also been able to increase the Meals on Wheels deliveries by 40%. I want to thank everyone involved, including Jonathan Greeley, Michael Christopher, and their team at the BPDA, 160 volunteers at our meal sites. Every day, volunteers show up with masks and gloves on, and without complaint or hesitation, to make sure that we can distribute this food. I wish I could thank each and every one of you. You know who you are, so thank you. The delivery drivers from the Boston Police Cadets and the Boston Center for Youth and Family staff, thank you for all of your help. To find resources for all ages, you can visit boston.gov/Corona-19 food map. One more time. Boston.gov/COVID-19 food map. I think I got that right. Should I try one more time? One more time. Boston.gov/COVID-19 food map. Hopefully you have it that time. And if you didn't get that, just call 311. Food insecurity certainly has been a problem in our communities and across our country for a long time. This crisis has deepened the need and also brought it out of the shadows. And there's some great organizations in our city that have done that. The Greater Boston Food Bank reported today that the number of households they served in April was up 69% from this time last year. And the number of children they serve from this time last year is up 81%. So when I think about numbers like this, I think about the day before we shut everything down and how our economy was so prosperous and booming, and people were working and making money. And you realize the need has come out of the shadows, definitely. We knew the need was there. But when we go back, as we start to go back into society, and I think that, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of people are getting anxious about going back to work and opening businesses. Understand that there are other people struggling about where they're going to get their meal tonight. So I just want to keep things in perspective, including for myself. This response has grown out of the sense of what's possible when we come together as a city. Our food system will evolve as the situation evolves. But I believe that this fight and these partnerships will strengthen our work and strengthen our cities for years to come, and also help the families that are struggling right now to find a meal. Our food distribution has been made possible by the Boston Resiliency Fund, with over $9 million going to grants to local food providers. The work of the fund continues, so I want to update you on some of the work of the grant this week. This week we're issuing 19 new grants totaling $880,000. It consists of our food equity program. 58% of the organizations are led by persons of color, 58% are led by women organizations. We focus this week on helping seniors who are homebound, people experiencing homelessness, and building some of our early food grants. A few highlights. We're supporting the Chinese Golden Age Center to provide Meals on Wheels to seniors across the city of Boston. Elevate Boston. It will continue to deliver hot meals, groceries, toiletries, and PPE to thousands of families and seniors out of the breakfast spot in Roxbury. The African Community Economic Development of New England will deliver meals to Muslim families in need as they conclude the Ramadan month of fasting and prayer. The city is also supplying community care kits. The Mass Coalition for the Homeless will use the grant for its work with Procter & Gamble to supply hand sanitizer to every shelter in the city. And there's many other organizations in almost every neighborhood in the city of Boston that has been able to access the Resiliency Fund. In all, we've raised $30.8 million from nearly 6,000 donations and sent $18.5 million to over 200 organizations. Supporting young people with food and learning tools is a big part of what our focus has been. But there's also, we also have to feed the spirit and let them know that their future is bright. Especially for our graduating seniors. This is a tough time of the year for them. It was a tough time because of COVID, and they missed out so much of their senior year. They're going through an important transition in their life right now. There's lots of uncertainty, and they won't have those in-person ceremonies that are meaningful to them and their families and their friends. So we're doing what we can to help celebrate their graduations. I'm pleased to announce that on Saturday, June 13th, we will be broadcasting a citywide Boston Public School graduation event on WCVB Channel 5. Superintendent Brenda Casilius and I will be joined by special guest, former Education Secretary John King Jr. This isn't going to be about long speeches, but we want to make sure that Boston Public School graduates, the stars of the show, and are going to be the stars of the show, and we're getting them involved right now. We're working on doing that. We're looking forward to it, to making sure that everyone will tune in and celebrate this incredible graduation. It's June 13th at 7:30 p.m. And just a word to the graduates, I know that it's a difficult year, but it's also one of those years that in the history books, you're going to be one of probably ever a class that is having virtual graduations. So I guess you'll be able to brag about that somewhere down the road, at least put it on your resumes when you graduate college. I want to conclude by thanking our heroes. Monday is Memorial Day. It's one of the most important holidays in the life of our city and our country. It recognizes the members of our armed forces who gave their lives in service for our country, from the American Revolution up to the present day. Normally, I'd spend the day at ceremonies with veterans and Gold Star families from organizations like Mass Fallen Heroes, the VFW, American Legion, DAV posts, and all of the different sites that I would go around the city. This week, we could also be helping planting thousands of flags on Boston Common that people love to see, to create a moving image of a collective sacrifice with mass military heroes. We can't do any of that this year. We will be having virtual activities, and I encourage people to participate in them. We'll be working safely with volunteers to make sure every veteran's grave in Boston is marked by a United States flag, as we do all year round. I want to thank Veterans Commissioner Rob Santiago for his work, and for the Office of Veteran Services for their incredible work here in the city of Boston during this difficult time. They remain fully operational, and you can call if you need any assistance, 617-241-VETS. That's 617-241-VETS, or go to veterans@boston.gov. I especially want to encourage you to reach out if you are in need of connection or counseling, any veterans out there. I know that without visible public events, Memorial Day won't feel the same for many, and it will be easier to feel forgotten. So I'm asking everyone who can to do something special. Please join me in decorating the outside of your home with flags and patriotic symbols in honor of our military heroes for Memorial Day. You can ask kids on the neighborhood or your own kids to get involved, coloring flags, making decorations. If you make some phone calls, you can bring your whole street to life. In any case, you certainly shouldn't be going to cookouts, but you can show your veteran in your neighborhood that you care. You know that their sacrifice is the reason that we have our country. We need to reflect on that now more than ever. We are facing a tough enemy. We're making sacrifices. As I said earlier, many people are finding it difficult. I certainly understand those feelings. But it's important for us all to remember the ultimate sacrifice that so many veterans and their families made, and the struggles that many of them continue to endure. It puts some of our own sacrifices in perspective. We have role models in our fallen heroes and their families and all of our veterans who can inspire us right now if we take the time to recognize them. I want to thank them all personally today, and also on Memorial Day, and quite honestly every day. I hope that our reflection on Monday will help us in the work that we have ahead, and give us yet another reason to be thankful for our veterans every day of the year. I think I have one question I'm going to read, and then I'll open up to questions here. One is from Kerry Kavanaugh at Boston 25. It's actually two questions. As working parents look for options and answers as they return to work, do you think that infant care should be excluded as an option? And second one, what provisions would you like to see what provisions would you like to see happen for working parents in the city of Boston? Everyone who can should work from home. I want to thank and encourage employers for making that possible. If we do need childcare, we're asking people to make every effort to avoid group settings and find alternative arrangements. Our understanding of the state's plan for phase 1 is that it uses the emergency child care system right now that's in place for essential workers, and opens it up for recovering workers if they have no other alternatives. There are about 30 emergency child care centers approved here in the city of Boston. We're doing what we can in the city to support the important work that they're doing every single day. Last week, we used the Boston Resiliency Fund to provide a second major grant to the YMCA to sustain emergency child care facilities at 9 of their locations here in Boston. In all, we've granted nearly $1 million to ensure that emergency slots stay open through the end of June. You can find a list of facilities at boston.gov/coronavirus or on our new page for reopening information. If we are going to continue to move forward, we are going to continue to move forward to reopen. This issue is going to be certainly an urgent statewide priority. I agree with those who say we need more creative and provide more clarity. We continue to be in dialogue with providers and families and ready to work with the state on a plan. Okay, I have a second question. Karen Riegel from WBZ Radio. At today's MBTA Fiscal Management Control Board, Stephanie Pollock said that she's been in contact with the mayor's office about how to increase service without overwhelming the city in a time when the mayor wants to save lives through social distancing. How does the mayor accommodate people who rely entirely on the T, especially low-income workers, while protecting the city? Yesterday, our transportation team here at the City of Boston, led by Chris Osgood, met with Secretary Pollock and General Manager Steve Partak. And the T will not be at regular frequency until phase 3, even then at reduced capacity for social distancing. We need the T to continue their focus on cleaning vehicles and providing PPE for their workers and providing safety for their workers. Both are really important for the health of the system, and the T knows this. There are several strategies that we're focused on right now to help out. We're going to continue our work on bus lanes so buses don't have to get stuck in traffic as traffic increases on our streets. This practice expands the T's capacity, encouraging people to take more short trips by walking and biking rather than the T, and by continuing our work on bike lanes and blue bikes expansion. We're also working on expanding blue bikes in the City of Boston. Working with the T to identify bus corridors where T should add back more service faster. So we're going to continue to work with the MBTA on increasing service. With that, turn it on. I have a lot of concerns. The question is, what are my concerns for this weekend, Memorial Day, with the weather being nicer and more cookouts, and particularly around the beaches and the parks? I have major concerns with that because we're still in the very early stages of this pandemic here in Boston, in Massachusetts. All indication says that, we could be battling this pandemic for 8 months to a year. And as we begin to think about reopening and rephasing open, I think it's important for people to stay healthy so that when their opportunity opens up for them to go back to work, they can go back to work. All the precautions for protecting your family as well. So I'd ask people, I'm personally asking people, don't be hanging on the beach. If you go for walks, practice social distancing, physical distancing. Don't be playing volleyball on the beach. Don't be doing things like that. Don't be doing activity like that, because again, we're still in the stages where there's a lot of room for virus to be spread. Our studies show that roughly 10% of all Bostonians have either been COVID positive themselves or they have the antibody, which says that over 600,000 Bostonians have not. And don't put yourself in a risk to become one of the folks that are in the numbers I read every day. No, I mean, I'm not sure at this point. And the question is, if you look at any extra enforcement, quite honestly, our police department, what their job should be doing is making sure that people are safe. We shouldn't have to be going around explaining to people something they already know to be safe. Yeah, I don't think, the question is the governor mentioned yesterday that the 25% office space first phase reopening is a cap, and that local leaders can look at a different number under that. And the question to me was am I, what's that number, or what am I looking at? Quite honestly, right now we're still working on what that would look like, but my message is to the businesses in Boston as we get towards June 1st, as much as possible, if you can have your employees work from home, I would ask you to do that. First of all, they're working from home anyway. They should be working from home anyway. That was kind of the stay-at-home advisory that we've been putting in place. But I would ask you not to rush the 25% or whatever number it is we're going to talk about putting in place. We're putting together a comprehensive conversation right now, plan with being able to present. A lot of folks that have offices and buildings, they don't know what that means. They're like, well, how do we do this? And we want to be able to give them a guide. And we're going to be, as part of our reopening website, that we're going to hand them, and we're working on the I don't think it's finalized yet. I think we're working on the final touches of that. Our plan is to have that done probably over the weekend. I don't know if we'll have a number of 10%, 20%, 24% in there, but certainly I'm going to be encouraging as many people to work from home as possible still. No, I mean the question is on the applications for people looking to have outdoor dining. How does it work? There's going to be a process. We're asking people, if you go on the City of Boston website, go to licensing, you'll see that we're making it easier for people to apply for these licenses. They're one-day licenses, so there'll be a series of one-day licenses that we're going to do. We have 147 people that have expressed interest now, and we'll go through the guidelines of what it looks like. Some restaurants have the ability right now, without having any type of special waivers allowed for them to open up on sidewalks that we were looking at, but we're working through a process. So what's going to happen? I'll give you an example. So a restaurant on Dorchester Avenue wants to have outdoor dining. They don't have the ability, but they have a sidewalk in front of their building. They would apply saying that we're interested in having a patio or something in front of our store. It's on the sidewalk. We would be working with them to see if we could do, if you remember, we launched a few years ago in the City of Boston these parklets, where we put them in a parking space, so we'd potentially give them a parklet where they could set up some tables, the sidewalks stay accessible for folks, and we'd be able to allow them the opportunity to do some outdoor dining. There's other places that we might be able to, close down a parking, a lane in the street that's used for parking, and maybe turn that into a restaurant space. So we're being creative in different parts of the city. There's not one plan that'll work everywhere. Some people have said shut down Hanover Street. It sounds like a great idea, and in theory it'd be wonderful, but we have a fire station in the middle of Hanover Street, so we have to think about how we do something like that and work on that. So we're going to be working with the businesses, but we're also going to be working with the communities to let them know that's coming. There is going to be some sort of community process here. It passes over public hearings to get a license, but we're still going to be asking. And if we're going to, like, for example, a lot of our restaurants are in residential neighborhoods, so there's a house on either side of them. So we want people to know that, like, okay, we might allow them to have outdoor dining. You're okay with it because people have their homes next door. I mean, there's not one place in Boston. Newbury Street's different than, Washington Street in Rosendale, or Dudley Street in Dorchester, Roxbury. It's all different. Yeah. I personally haven't been in touch with them, but I know my Office of Economic Development, I believe, has, and we're working to make sure. I believe we're working on the pickup in front of their store. If I'm not mistaken, it's a kind of a residential neighborhood. I'm not sure if they have commercial parking in front. So I think what we're going to try and do is create a dedicated space that people go in, pick up, and take off, like we did in some of our restaurants. They're going to do 15-minute parking there. I think that's the only request they've asked for. Great questions. Kind of two questions. One is kind of as Boston Hope, the numbers in Boston Hope are down significantly than they have been since it opened, and kind of what the future might be of that. And the second question is about our homeless population and as far as the sheltering system. So let me just touch on the first one. We're having the conversations right now, the city and the state, about the future of the facility at Boston Hope. What we're focused on is making sure that those conversations strike the right balance and the needs of today can be met in the future. So it's something that we have to be very cautious of. We're going to continue to provide updates on the decisions as we move forward. I'm not going to give my personal feeling what should happen with Boston Hope until we have the conversation, but we'll have that conversation. As far as the homeless population, we still have, that was one of the first kind of operations that we did in the very beginning, was to create places for our homeless population to go, meaning they were at our facility, at Pine Street Inn, at Boston Rescue Mission, Healthcare for the Homeless, and some other organizations that have overnight facilities. And we realized that we would have to come up with places because of physical social distancing to be able to put guests of our shelter in different places. We also came up with kind of a self-containment tent that people that might be symptomatic, and then we had obviously places for people to go that had COVID-19. We still, for the foreseeable future, are going to need additional shelter capacity because of physical social distancing. We've gone through one test of our homeless population, and about 33% of our homeless population have tested positive for COVID-19. And we're going to be looking at how do we continue to retest to make sure people are cured, are better now. And we also have 10 people that we know of right now, 10 homeless folks that have lost their life due to COVID-19. So it's really important for me and for us in the city to continue to take care of our vulnerable population. So for the foreseeable future, we're going to have alternative sites in the city of Boston for our homeless folks. I don't know if that answers your question. We're not sure. We're having the second question was, do we see Boston Hope remaining as part of the solution for our homeless population? It's hard to say. I mean, I think we still have patients there, first and foremost, and they're still being admitted. As of yesterday, I think 4 or 5 people were admitted from the hospital into Boston Hope. I think we're at 54 today. We'll get the new numbers later on. So for right now, we still need Boston Hope. It's still helping us with the capacity in our hospital system. You know, I think that the question is about what do I say to kids that are living with uncertainty in the times that we're living in, and what's my message to them? I guess my message to them and to everyone, and I've thought about it a lot over the last 10 weeks, is that we're living in very challenging, uncertain times. There is certain generations of people that have had the opportunity to live through challenging times and come out stronger on the other side. 1917, 1918, Spanish flu, World War I, World War II, Vietnam, 9/11, in Boston, the marathon bombing. This is something that we've never ever experienced, and I think that for young people, I think this is going to make you stronger, and you understand that you can overcome any challenge. Even though your school year got cut short, you still completed and finished. Even though that you weren't able to connect with your friends or stay connected to your friends physically, you were able to do that through technology. You were able to learn. You're able to teach us on how to move forward. And this lesson that you're learning right now, even though you might not see it, is going to be invaluable as you get older and become leaders in your own right. And I think there's certainly something to be said for that. I can speak just again I watch the young people around me here at City Hall, and I'm not talking about Marty and the cabinet and the department heads. I'm talking about young people, just watching them step up and lead without being asked, just doing it, not complaining, doing it every day. Our young people in neighborhood services. Yesterday they came in and they were packing bags to distribute across the city, and they were also giving me updates on neighborhood organizations, and they were staying on top of projects in our community, and they were talking about the problems and challenges, and I just watched them grow in this time, and it's been amazing to watch them grow. And the same is said for our high schoolers, any age of our high schoolers, but you are growing right now. You might not see it, but this will make you stronger and make you a great leader someday. And being a leader, you might be a parent, and you'll be a great parent because of what you've experienced. All right, thanks. Everyone all set? Okay. Remember, no beaches for you reporters on Saturday and Sunday.